Indonesian Institute for Corporate Directorship atau IICD adalah organisasi non-profit yang didirikan oleh 10 universitas bereputasi tinggi dan beberapa individu terkemuka di Indonesia. Hingga saat ini, IICD memiliki lebih dari 8.000 alumni yang terdiri dari senior manajer, direktur, hingga komisaris. Kami memposisikan diri sebagai mitra strategis bagi mereka yang merupakan para pembuat keputusan dalam menerapkan praktek-praktek terbaik dari corporate governance.
Setelah
dari awal berdirinya, program-program IICD didukung oleh the World Bank, International Finance Corporation, Global Corporate Governance Forum, Center for International Private Enterprises, Asian Development Bank, dan juga Otoritas Jasa Keuangan sebagai bagian dari kegiatan IICD dalam melakukan internalisasi praktek-praktek terbaik tata kelola perusahaan di Indonesia. Dalam upaya pengembangan tata kelola yang baik pada sektor publik, Yayasan IICD yang semula hanya fokus dalam pengembangan tata kelola dan kedirekturan korporasi, kemudian pada tahun 2017 mulai memperluas kegiatannya ke sektor publik. Upaya-upaya pembaharuan guna mendukung transformasi tata kelola yang berkelanjutan pada sektor publik di Indonesia, kemudian kami lakukan melalui Indonesian Institute for Public Governance atau IIPG. Dan kini, Yayasan IICD membawahi 2 kegiatan, yaitu pengembangan corporate governance melalui IICD dan pengembangan public governance melalui IIPG. IIPG dengan visinya yaitu menjadi institusi reformasi tata kelola publik yang terpercaya di Indonesia, kedepannya akan membantu institusi publik untuk mencapai kinerja terobosan dalam pertumbuhan sosioekonomi dan reformasi tata kelola.
David masih di mute ya.
Dengan bergabung dalam program eksklusif IICD serta IIPG, Anda dapat menemukan rahasia untuk menjadi individu-individu profesional yang kompeten dan berkesempatan untuk dapat meningkatkan kemampuan Anda dalam mengimplementasikan praktek-praktek terbaik dari good corporate governance dan good public governance di Indonesia. Sampai jumpa di program-program IICD dan IIPG.
At SparkCognition, AI isn't just an idea. We build artificial intelligence-powered products that are solving the most urgent challenges in the world's most critical industries, whether it's in oil and gas, government and military, manufacturing, or industrial cybersecurity. Our customers use our solutions to improve lives, enhance security, and drive efficiencies across the globe.
SparkCognition can be #1 in all artificial intelligence for the whole industrial world.
Companies like SparkCognition are in the leading forefront, trying to think of how do we gain an advantage by using AI in specific instances.
SparkCognition is a leading artificial intelligence company.
Since 2013, we've had the privilege of helping the world's largest organizations achieve their business objectives through the use of our AI products and platforms.
What SparkCognition represents is just a tremendous amount of progressive thought, forward progress on a topic that everybody's interested in. The Google relationship with SparkCognition is a deep one, and we're excited to continue to invest in it.
Artificial intelligence will provide decision support. It will augment every piece of that value chain in ways that we've never seen before, and we're super excited about that. Our partners at SparkCognition have shown us advanced capabilities that will fit into every piece of this equation.
Our core products are designed and built by industry-leading AI experts and embody the most sophisticated algorithms and techniques. And even more importantly, we've built these systems to meet and exceed the needs of the most demanding customers across industries.
In my mind, SparkCognition is at the leading edge of the
research in artificial intelligence and the implementation of artificial intelligence for the years to come.
The world of tomorrow will be shaped by AI systems that perceive the world around us, automate decision-making, and enable autonomy in our companies, homes, and cities. At SparkCognition, we build the artificial intelligence systems that power our world.
Artificial intelligence is clearly one of the big disruptors of the future. And when you have a company that can both lead there, but also care about the social responsibility of how do you do the right things as you lead, it's an honor for me to be a part of that. That's what I see in SparkCognition. That's why I'm so excited about it.
Founded in 1971, PT Geoservices is 100% owned by Indonesian citizen named Ong Hanling and Durban Latifardho. PT Geoservices is fully integrated exploration services company, original based on Bandung. The company now has branch office in Jakarta and Singapore as well as other key locations. Employing more than 1,200 employees, the company is offering in geological mapping, geophysical surveys, geochemical survey, topographic survey, drilling downhole measurements, laboratories analysis and cargo superintending for quantity and quality. PT Geoservices has a solid base of expertise covering on oil, gas, coal, mineral, coal bed methane, and geothermal industries. Today the company is a one-stop organization that can fulfill all exploration and analysis requirements for each of the industrial sectors, and have experienced for almost 50 years. Our philosophy is excellent services with high professional integrity. PT Geoservices has gained a high reputation among major mining companies in Indonesia, as well as overseas companies from various divisions. The company division are exploration, drilling, geothermal, training, geological and laboratory services, coal laboratory and superintending, mineral testing analysis, environmental laboratory, equipment service, seismic archiving and pre-processing, geoservices support, marine surveyor, inspection service, cargo superintending. The combination of experienced personnel, modern instrumentation, extensive staff training, and strict quality control procedures has gained PT Geoservices worldwide acceptance. Dedication to maintaining these high standards in Indonesia ensures that PT Geoservices will enjoy international recognition for many years to come.
Good morning, selamat pagi, and welcome to all participants from our webinar today with the theme, The Age of Digital Transformation, Enabling Organization with Artificial Intelligence During Market Transition, with me, David Manalu. This webinar will discuss everything about digital transformation faced by industry in the world, especially in Indonesia on Industry 5.0 era. We will discuss the advantage and the function of artificial intelligence in the development and challenges faced by the industry in entering this transitional market period. This event is held in collaboration with the Indonesian Institute for Corporate Directorship, or IICD, SparkCognition, and Geoservices, and fully supported by BeritaSatu Media Holding. In the next few hours, we will learn some interesting best practices from prominent figures and practitioners, as well as academics, who explore and work in the field of artificial intelligence. We have with us today, from the academic perspective, Professor Eko Indrajit, an IT expert. From the perspective of practitioners and industry, Ibu Insinyur Betty Alisha Bana, former CEO of IBM Indonesia. AI expert, Mr. Amir Hussain, also CEO of SparkCognition. Lord John Brown of Mattingly, former CEO of BP. And also the head of APAC, Mr. Hiroshi Kinoshita, and VP Solution, Mr. Philippe Herve from SparkCognition, who will explain the details about our AI solution. This webinar event will be carried out in interactive manners and in bilingual, where participants can ask questions and input directly in the availability checkbox and will be answered by our speakers. And a token of appreciation, there are 10 selected questioners who will be receiving this book, The Sentient Machine by Amir Hussain. But before we continue with the program, we're going to have photo opportunities with all our speakers, most of our speakers that we have today. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's have our picture taken. Yes? Okay. Yeah. Please give your best pose. All right. Count. 1, 2, 3, click. All right. Okay. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the ability of artificial intelligence to replace the role of humans, all fields of expertise in industry, is very beneficial, and the ability in monitoring and compliance is no exception, which is something important to know, not only for board of directors and business owners, but in all lines. How does the Indonesian Institute of Directorship, as the institution that is very concerned in the field of a good corporate governance, which consists of leaders and decision makers, view and respond to this amid the hustle and bustle of the digital transformation that is currently being promoted? And are the future plans in developing compliances and GCG for companies in Indonesia? Next, we will listen to the opinion and as well as opening remarks for this event. We'll welcome the executive directors of the Indonesian Institute for Corporate Directorship, or IICD, and the Indonesian Institute for Public Governance, or IIPG. Please welcome Ibu Vita Diani Satyadi. Ibu Vita.
Thank you, Dave. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. First of all, as the Executive Director of IICD, I would like to express my appreciation and gratitude to all of you for your participation in today's webinar, which is in a collaboration between IICD, SparkCognition, and PT Geoservices, and supported by BeritaSatu Media Holding Group as the media partner, with the theme, the age of digital transformation, enabling organization with artificial intelligence during market transition. My particular thanks to the speaker of today's webinar for their participation in sharing their views and insights. They are Amir Hussain, founder and CEO of SparkCognition, Lord John Brown of Mattingly, BOD member of SparkCognition, Philippe Herve, VP Energy SparkCognition, Hiroshi Kinoshita, Head of APAC SparkCognition, and last but not least, the IICD's Fellow, Professor Dr. Eko Indrajit, and the IICD Board, Ibu Betty Alishabana. Ladies and gentlemen, as we all realize, whether we like it or not, we have entered an age of disruption, or we know as the Industrial Revolution 4.0. Currently, digital transformation is no longer an option, but a necessity in maintaining business continuity that cannot be avoided. The strategy of IT must be aligned with the organization business strategy. IT governance becomes the driving force for the implementation of good corporate governance principles in the company. In the era of the current uncertain global and domestic economy, which especially worsened by COVID-19 pandemic, it is necessary to implement an integrated corporate governance in accordance with the prevailing regulation by prioritizing the importance of digital transformation. And as a non-profit organization founded in 2000, ICD has a vision to internalize the best corporate governance practices based on the international standard. And this digital transformation theme is in line with IICD's vision in driving good corporate governance implementation in a competitive, effective, and efficient manner. Today's webinar will discuss the importance of artificial intelligence in the digital transformation process. What is machine learning? What is artificial intelligence actually? How artificial intelligence will boost revenue, lowering costs, and be managed? Let's listen directly the presentation of some prominent speakers who are experts in the world of digitalization, especially artificial intelligence. Without further ado, I give the time for all speakers to share with you all their insights and hope you all enjoyed this webinar. Once again, thank you for your participation. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Yeah. Thank you, Bufita, for that opening speech. Ladies and gentlemen, although the artificial intelligence technology has existed since the 1960s in different shapes and sizes, for some circles in technology is still relatively new, especially in Indonesia. Like, what is the progress and what is the roadmap of artificial intelligence both among academics and in the world of industry, which has penetrated into a disruption of technology? And will Indonesia become one of the AI players who can be counted on in the international world? Next is a presentation from the academic who is also exploring this AI technology. He has a Master of Applied Computer Science from Harvard University and professorship in the Computer Science and Information System, a Chancellor of Pradita Institute, President of the Association of Higher Learning Institution in Computing and Information Technology Studies, President of International Association of Software Architects, Indonesian Chapter, Special Advisory Member to the Ministry of National Education and Ministry of Research and Technology. With the title Introduction to Artificial Intelligence, Where is AI Today? Please welcome Professor Dr. Insinyur R. Eko Indrajit, MSc, MBA, MPhil, MA. Prof. Eko, the floor is yours.
Thank you, David, for the introduction. So, a very good morning to all ladies and gentlemen, and also all of the distinguished speakers, and also Ibu Vita from IICD. I'm truly an honor to open the sharing and discussion today with the title of Artificial Intelligence. As an academic, I found quite a challenge to start with discussion because in my university, the introduction to artificial intelligence takes one whole semester, and I have to squeeze it in 10 to 15 minutes. I hope I can do a good work. Thank you so much, because this is, I also have my guru here. Ibu Betty is my guru in my IT, so I hope I can do the task that's given to me. So let me start sharing my presentation. So, where is the AI today? If I choose any person in Indonesia, especially the young generation, and I ask them, what is an AI? What come into their mind if they are when they are hearing the words artificial intelligence? Most of them thinking is going through the humanoid, the robotics things, because of the Hollywood movies. They even not consider that actually AI is already in their hand. If you are using iPhone, for example, you have a Siri that are ready for you to assist you to do whatever you need by only giving the instruction verbally. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to know where is the AI today, my thought is just simple meet Sophia, the world's first robot citizen. Okay, Sophia is a social humanoid actually developed by the Hong Kong-based company Hanson Robotics in the 2016 Valentine's Day, February 14th. And it made her first appearance in the mid-March 2016 in Austin, Texas, United States. In October 2017, this is a very interesting, this humanoid, Sophia, became a Saudi Arabian citizen. So the robot became the citizen of the country. So this is the answer of the question that where is AI today, David and ladies and gentlemen? Yeah, they create the human and become the first citizen of the world. And then the most amazed one, when if you open the YouTube or any other sources, the Sophia has been appeared in several high-level interview, including with Tony Robbins. And what Tony Robbins asked the robots or Sophia is not a simple questions like what is your name, where's your address. This is too simple. Tony Robbins asked about philosophical questions, the question that needs a thought, a question that takes a special cognitive skills to answer. For example, do you think what do you think about you? How about the are you have a consciousness like a human? So all of the philosophical question was asked to the Sophia, and the robot can answer nicely. So this is, if you want to talk about the end, this is the end of the aim of the artificial intelligence development in the world, or this is just the beginning. Let's start from the very beginning then. What is an AI? The AI simply is an intelligence demonstrated by machines because they want to mimic the natural intelligence displayed by humans and animals. In 1994, if I'm not mistaken, where I was attending an AI class by Professor Marvin Minsky in MIT, I asked the question, are you trying to create a human? And you know what his answer is? I want to create a better human. And then I asked him, what do you mean by a better human? And he asked me back with a simple question. Okay, what is 234 times 7,253? And I said, wait a minute, I have to calculate first. I need my calculator. And then he said, see, the calculator is faster than you. So I want to create a better human. That is the first expression I understand about the AI. So AI is trying to mimic, to create, to take a part of the human intelligence into machines. So all of the human capabilities are trying to be enhanced, or is trying to be copied, is trying to be mimicked by the AI capabilities. Humans have the 5 senses. So the AI should have a sense. He can read the human writing, for example. The AI can understand human voice. The AI can think like human. The AI can have artificial vision, and also he can have a capability of listening and speaking. So those are actually the basic of AI. They are trying to mimic what human might have, the intelligence, and enhance it. Now, will it be better than average human? So my thought is now, the AI will be used to empowering people. Because if we are enhanced, so human will be bring to the next level. Human has a capability of memorizing things. We have a capability of seeing something far, far away. we are limited in understanding a complex situation. We have problem if we are faced with the multi-complex environment, especially in the view covered that's full of the volatile and then ambiguous and a complex, uncertain situation. We need to be helped. We need to be assisted by tools and technology so that we can make a good decision. We can understand, we can comprehend the complex problems, and then we can increase our accuracy in making decisions or in trying to do other activities in our life, especially in the business situation, and of course to perform high level of computation. AI have a capability to do a fast learning, and he also the AI also equipped with the algorithm. We can enhance their algorithm fastly, because inside the AI also they have like a human brain, a memory. They have the multi-senses. They can help human if they have to face with a dangerous or unsecure situation. So if you look a robot, a humanoid, actually is not a human. It's trying to mimic the human intelligence by giving them a fake emotion and a hardwired mind. So if we go to the formula of AI, it's very simple. It's like a human brain. They call it machine learning. Yeah, the server in our brain. Yeah, who can learn things. That's what differentiates human and other people. We can think, we can learn. So AI will consist of the machine learning and the data. The data is coming, the facts from all surrounding us, and of course the human in the loop. Why the humans also should be involved in the AI equation? Remember when we were born, they're still small, they're still a baby. Our parents assist us because we are in the stage of learning something. So AI machines also have a limitation. They are working on the quality of the data they are having. Like when we were a child, we have limited data and we collect the data as we grow. And also the AI. AI needs data, and AI will learn through the data. That's why they need a brain, the machine learning, an algorithm, the ability of the computer to learn, to understand the instruction, to take some kind of conclusion so that they can do something. And human in the loop is to assist them, the involvement of the human, because they are still learning. In some stages, you will see a false negative and false positive that need to be assisted by the human. So by using this algorithm, you will understand that AI is nothing without trained data. AI is nothing with just small amount of data. They have to collect data, they have to learn. So essentially like a human brain that need a development stage. Now, what is the artificial intelligence architecture? As you see, the foundation is really the data is the foundation. So if you want to use AI for the customer service, for the sales and marketing, to understand whether a fraud management happens or not, yeah, to help you become your financial advisory, you have to have the data and analytics, and in the second layer, you will have the machine learning, the natural language processing. They call it, this is an AI building blocks before they equip you with the AI solution. AI started in 1950s in Indonesia, in almost all universities like ITB, ITS, UGM, and Universities of Indonesia. They learned AI from the early 1970s. And now, what is the artificial intelligence for the corporation means? AI in Indonesia, and also most of the corporations in Indonesia, they have several contexts and use. The first one, in Indonesia, they are using AI to make a meaning of unstructured and chaotic information. As you know, Indonesia is very famous with the social media. There are so many data in our cyberspace. the unstructured, the structured, formal, informal, internal, external data, and those data actually is an oil that we need to be collect, explore, and find the meaning to give a business values. It's not easy to mine the data and to try which one is good, which one is not, which one can give you a value for your business decision, which one is not. So that most of the company in Indonesia, they are using AI to make a meaning of unstructured and chaotic data and information. From collecting the data from different sources and then trying to clean the data and then make a meaning of the data for the planning to understand the market, etc. That's the first use of AI that I see that Indonesian company are used in the common way. The second one, they are trying to use the AI to understand the dynamic business through a real-time data. As we know that data can be used to describe what's happening in the market, who are our customer, who are our most valuable customer, who are our competitors, what happened with our product, so that we can do some kind of anticipation for the planning, or we can create a right or effective strategy for the next years or the incoming years. They are trying to use AI to understand what happened, why this happened, what will happen in the futures, and how we should anticipate those trends or those possibilities. And also a various AI used in Indonesia enterprise context. Clustering, for example, in the bank, they are using AI to investigate whether there is a fraud or not. They are using our face to use as a biometrics. Our face, our voice, our fingerprints, for the authenticity and the security. They are using natural language processing in the call center, to enhance the customer service, to give the customer service new experience, for troubleshooting, for example. They are using AI to do the auto classifications based on the human, based on the customer behaviors. Especially in Indonesia, you know, we like a social media a lot. We take pictures in many times. We like a selfie, and every selfie, every media social create a video, audio with a background. They are using AI to understand where are my customers, what they are doing, what their behaviors, etc., so that I can give them the best products and services. And they understand that AI is a part of Industry Revolution 4.0. It's a part of the disruptive phenomena happening in the world. So 300% increase on AI investment in the average of the company, especially in the telecommunication, in the banking, in the oil and gas in Indonesia. They are starting to invest more in AI. RPA, for example, robotic process automation is one of the things that they are trying to start their AI journey. 57% of business expect AI will help them to improve customer experience, especially millennials and the Z generation. 20% of all major retailers will use AI to personalize brand experience. We know one of the characteristic of the millennials, they want to be different, unique. They want to be understood based on their characteristic. 20% of our workers will use automated assistant technology to make decisions and get the work done, especially during the pandemic situation when working from home will become a habit in the new normal. And 80% of the executives say AI will boost the productivity and create new position of the company. So before I end my presentation, many people ask, where are we now? Indonesia is very diverse. From Aceh to Papua, we have different situation, very heterogeneous environment. So heterogeneous environment create a heterogeneous also in the situation, in the needs, and in the solution. Some of Indonesian companies are still in the foundation step. For example, like today, some of the organizations are starting to understand whether AI can be benefit for their business or not. They are still questioning, are AI really right for me or not, for my company or not? Yeah? And then the second one, after they understand that AI is not just the robots, AI actually trying to take a part of the whole of the human brain to help human to enhance their capability so that it will enhance also the company. So they start to start with a small project to create, to embark AI in their business. From the call center, customer categorization for RPA or other small initiative to start the AI. When they see the AI really effective, they can prove to facilitate their business and create a new performance. Then AI will embark to the organization, to the business, become aspirational. And AI will be mentioned in organization if it's already embedded in the soul of the organization. So all the business process, all of the culture, AI culture will be happening, and it is an important part of the digital transformation. I close my presentation with the Indonesian Grand 2045 vision. The BPPT just invite all of us to have what we call as Indonesian AI Grand Vision. There are 5 AI priority by Indonesian government to boost our national development. Those 5 areas are in the area of healthcare, bureaucratic reforms, education and research, food security, and mobility, especially for the smart city. 100 Indonesian cities already been assigned as the smart cities that can be used as the benchmark or the reference for other cities to be embarked in the new digital situation. And of course, all of our business related to the healthcare, bureaucratic or the government, education research, food security, and the smart or mobility of the city. So ladies and gentlemen, AI is the thing that is here. And because of the pandemic, I have my thought looking at the pandemic situation as differently, because I and my fellows 25 years is trying to convince the education how to use IT in the education, 25 years, and it's very difficult to tell them about the e-learning, about the virtual campus, are very, very difficult. But only because of one pandemic, COVID-19, suddenly in 1 week, all of the school, all of the university in Indonesia implement e-learning. So we don't want to wait until we are forced to use all those kind of new technology. But what I think is the future came earlier than we thought. So you better get ready for the AI implementation in your business before the big disruption coming in our life. That is my introduction to AI. I hope it will be beneficial for all of you. And I'm waiting for the question and answer and discussion if you have a question. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Eko. That was a very comprehensive and also interesting presentation, and also facts about where is AI today. And we're going to go to the question and answer sessions. Ya, Bapak dan Ibu, jika Bapak dan Ibu juga ingin menanyakan tentang hal yang berhubungan dengan AI dalam bahasa Indonesia, juga kami bisa persilahkan. Nanti akan kami coba translate ke dalam bahasa Inggris dan juga vice versa. Ya, di tengah kita sudah ada sebuah pertanyaan. Ini Prof. Eko dalam bahasa Indonesia dari from Hardianto, Head of Division of Cabinet Secretary of Republic of Indonesia. Ya, pada tanggal 4 April 2018, Presiden Jokowi telah meluncurkan peta jalan dan strategi Indonesia untuk menerapkan revolusi industri jilid 4 yang diberi nama Making Indonesia 4.0. Sementara itu, Perserikatan Bangsa-Bangsa atau PBB atau United Nations melalui laporan 2 tahunannya E-Government Survey 2020, Digital Government in the Decade of Action for Sustainability Development telah merilis tingkat adopsi sistem e-government yang dilakukan berbagai negara. Dalam laporan tersebut, Indonesia masuk dalam jajaran dengan tingkat implementasi sistem pemerintahan berbasis elektronik atau SPBI pada peringkat ke-88 dari 193 negara. Pertanyaan saya di sini adalah bagaimana enabling organization pada webinar pagi ini dapat mendukung peningkatan peringkat Indonesia dalam e-government. Oke, jadi penggunaan AI dalam e-government nih, Prof. Eko ya. How to accelerate our AI technology into more e-government. Tadi ada Indonesia AI Grand Vision ya, mungkin bisa di relate dengan itu. Silakan Prof. Eko.
Should I answer it in English or in Indonesia, Pak David?
Yeah, up to you.
Because I can mix it English, Indonesia,
Yes,
or C++,
of course.
Java, or
In English, and then I will say in bahasa. Yes.
All right. Okay. The initiative of e-government Indonesia already started in the early 1990s, Pak. 1990-an sudah dimulai ya. And then yes, kita struggling dan selalu menuju pada sana, apalagi ketika our President Jokowi give a special emphasis on the public bureaucracy reform. Okay, and the public bureaucracy reform, if you see that, one of our president always put an emphasis is speed. Correct, Pak David?
Yeah.
Is a speed. Yeah. So where is AI on the context of the e-government is to make the government services, the speed of the government services increase. An example, Pak.
Okay.
We are the country with the number 4 population in the world, correct?
Right.
It means that every government officer, they have to take care of thousands of people, correct, Pak?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. We have to menaruh perhatian, put attention to every person in Indonesia. Tidak mungkin satu orang bisa melayani. It's impossible to give a best services to every person if you want a limited resources. There is where AI comes from.
Okay.
They are helping us to leverage our limited resources to serve our publics in the personalized manners. That's number 1. Number 2, for example, as a government, we want not just to serve a public, but also to serve the industry. Correct, Pak David?
Yes.
We want to increase our collaboration and investment from outside Indonesia, from other part of the world. Now, my question is, what is the office hour, Pak David, in Indonesia?
8, 9 hours? 8, 9
From 7 o'clock to 4?
4? Yeah, something like that.
Okay, it means if I ask you a question, our government services formally or officially is from 7 to 5 p.m., correct?
Right.
5 p.m. in Indonesia is 5 a.m. in United States.
Yeah. Time differences.
So if there are business, it is the different part of the globe. So if you want to have a collaboration, we want to boost our investment, we want to find our partner from other part of the city, we have to be able to 24/7, 7 days a week.
Right.
Correct?
Right.
So if so the government services should be able to help the citizens, the public in Indonesia and outside Indonesia in 24/7 models. How? Use the AI. Use the software. Although the office already closed, but the service are still open. If we can do this one, Pak David, I believe our rank will be increased in a very significant level. So 24/7 availability of our government to serve our publics in Indonesia and in the world. Although the office is closed, but the services are still open.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That's the question from yeah. This is another question from Salomon DP. How AI-driven companies can outstrip traditional firms, and can companies that use AI survive in the COVID pandemic era? Prof. Eko. AI-driven companies, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, every company have different needs. Every company have different maturity. Yeah, every company have also different context in using the AI. During my era, when AI was still in the development, if we heard about name AI, what's coming into my mind? Oh, AI is very expensive. It's out of my reach. Yeah, it takes complex projects to do it. That is our understanding of the old AI.
Yeah.
AI right now is a very simple. AI very now is very easy to implement, and any business can use AI at least to understand their customers. My guru in business tell me only one thing. This is what they said to me. Eko, business is very simple. What do you mean by simple? I asked my guru, and he said to me, you just try. Your effort is only one, is business. Try to maintain your existing customer while you are trying to find new customers. Correct?
Correct.
So as long as you can maintain your customers and you can have new customers, your business will be okay. So we can start by using AI to use those principles. We use AI to understand our customers. We use AI to make our customers loyal to our companies by understand them, not just understand by meaning that we know their needs, but also we greet them with their names. We greet them every day by using digital tools, yeah? And it can be happening easily if we have AI in our system. And the second one, we try to find new customers by creating new experience, creating new business solution, and creating new services for them. So that's how I put AI as a principle in the different type of the business.
Okay.
That is my, I hope it's beneficial. Thank you, Madam.
Yes, it's very interesting answer also, that the AI is everywhere, not just in the technical side, but also in the marketing and sales side. And now we have also another question, the last question from Francisco Wee, Director of CIMB Niaga. Banks difficult to compete with the fintech because banks are heavily regulated and need new products, including digital products, or even change in the products. Banks needs approval from the regulators, which take long and bureaucratic. Yeah, again between regulation and technology, which one's first? Jadi seperti ayam dan telur. Your thoughts, Prof. Eko?
Okay. Many people ask me about this question. They said that bank is a very highly regulated market, correct?
Right.
And the speed of the technology are very high, yeah. And the speed of the technology is faster than the speed of creating the regulations. Okay. Yep. So how to be able to compete with the fintech, how to be able to compete with other new services, because sometimes when the bank is trying to innovate, they say that I cannot do this because it's against the regulation. My question is very simple, Pak David. Yes. It's not about the technological issue, it's not about the regulation issue, it's not about the money issue, it's a mindset issue. So my proposal is very easy. You bring the regulation inside to create the new products together. That's what other countries do.
So
instead of we create a product and then go out and ask the regulation, no, bring the regulation inside, become a part of your R&D, and we create the new product and services together for the benefit of our country. That is my question.
That's a very
my answer. Sorry.
Yeah, that's a very interesting and smart answer. So it's simultaneously ada regulation dan juga produk. So it's hand in hand gitu ya, Prof. Eko ya. Okay.
Pak David understand about the we call it before is the triangle, right? Between the
triangle.
business, government, and education.
Yeah.
We have to merge. We have to convert these things into an R&D.
Okay.
So that we can create a regulation. We can
Together.
make an agile regulations.
Exactly, agile regulation. Okay, Prof. Eko, actually, there's a lot of questions that still are coming, but the time constraint again, we have to finish our session. But before you go,
Thank you.
I want to ask you to stay for a while because Mr. Amir Hussain, the CEO of SparkCognition, is already with us, join us today, and we would like to have a photo session once again. Do you mind to stay? Prof.
Yeah,
Eko?
no worry, no
Okay.
worry.
Okay.
Yeah, no worry.
So, can we have the photo session now, guys? Is it on? Okay. Okay. Yeah, we're still waiting for the other one. Hello, Mr. Amir Hussain, can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine, and I hope you can see me as well.
Yes, we do. We're going to have a photo session with Professor Eko before he ended his session. So we're going to do it once again together. Are you ready?
Wonderful, yes.
Yes. Okay, is everybody's here? Okay, countdown, please, with your best position and a smile. Countdown. 3, 2, 1. Cheers. All right. Okay. Okay, once again, Prof. Eko, for closing statement, what do you think that people will be substitute with the AI in the future? That's one of the philosophical questions. And your closing statement. Yeah, please go ahead.
I will answer that. I will answer that question because I'm coming from the academic point of view. So I will answer it from academic point of view. I'm involved in the Association of Indonesian Teachers, and when I tell them about this AI, the teacher asks me, "Will we be replaced by the robots and AI?" And this is my answer. Teachers, will not be replaced by their technology. No technology will be replace the teachers. But the teachers who are not using the technology will soon be replaced.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. So that's a very subtle. Yes.
Question, David.
Deeply, of course. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And for that, let's conclude our session, Prof. Eko. Let's everybody give her an applause. Give your virtual applause for Prof. Eko for that interesting session. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Best of luck for you, Prof. Eko, and let's have chat again with the AI. Thank you very much.
You too. Thank you, David. Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, still with the age of digital transformation, enabling organization with the artificial intelligence during the market transitions. And we're going to move on to our next sessions. With today's volatile, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity era, the technology-driven business is very promising. But the scarcity of talents and human capital in the great demand of investment in the tech era, and what kind of business model that can support the current industry to survive and can have the exponential growth. Join us today. The expert to help us elaborate more on these matters is the founders and CEO of SparkCognition. He has been named Austin's top technology entrepreneur of the year, listed as an analytical top 100 artificial intelligence influencer, and received the Austin's Under 40 Technology and Science Award, among several other accolades recognizing his work in artificial intelligence. Served on the board of advisor for the University of Texas Austin Department of Computer Science and on NATO Maritime Unmanned System Innovation Advisory Board. He's also a member of the Council of Foreign Relations, has been awarded over 30 patents and several pending applications. His work has been featured in world-leading outlets such as Foreign Policy, Fox Business News, and Proceedings from U.S. Naval Institute. Is the author of best-selling book, The Sentient Machine, the one that we're going to give away today for those of you who asked the questions. and also the coming age of artificial intelligence, and co-author of the compilation Hyperwar, Conflict and Competition in the AI Century. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to welcome Mr. Amir Hussain. Hello, Mr. Amir Hussain. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, hi. It's a real pleasure to be with you today.
Yes. So the floor is yours with your presentation.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I just wanted to make sure, I think everything's working, but can you see my slides?
Yes, we do.
Okay, wonderful. Well, first of all, let me thank you. Let me thank the conference organizers. This is a wonderful forum, and I was lucky enough to hear Professor Eko's remarkable comments. That was a fantastic presentation, and clearly you've done a wonderful job in putting together this very engaging conference. So thank you for including me. As you mentioned, my background in artificial intelligence goes back many years, and in particular, the work that I've done in artificial intelligence really fuses with entrepreneurship. For the longest time, I've been interested in figuring out how one makes the world better in many different ways. And in order to do that, you of course have to have a penchant for science. You need to have curiosity, but you also need to have the perseverance to go and make those things real. A lot of people have great ideas, and then transforming those ideas into action is where the real test comes. And I found that in terms of free enterprise, in terms of this wonderful innovation, the startup, being able to put together companies that can take some of those idealized missions, those technologies, and bring them to people, that they are indeed very powerful mechanisms. So how does one take artificial intelligence today, and how does one maximize the use of artificial intelligence for human benefit? There are two principal models that many of you have heard about, many of you have read success stories in both cases. On the one hand, you have a technology company that uses technology to disrupt an incumbent. In other words, there is a brick and mortar store, there is an old style bank that doesn't use digital systems, there might be an energy company that hasn't yet stepped into the world of digital, and you could come up with competition to that company. And as a competitor, you could employ digital tools, and you could say, look, I'm going to go disrupt this other business that hasn't yet joined the future, that doesn't yet use digital technologies, and I will transfer value from them to me. They will not be able to compete with me. I will transfer value from them to me. The other approach to business is to say, rather than transferring value, why don't we focus on building more value? Why don't we focus on expanding the size of the pie? There are those companies that may not have an inherent digital capability. Why don't we partner with those companies, bring best of breed AI, bring best of breed technology, and really help them make a difference? And so that AI transformation and helping those large companies make that AI transformation is one of the missions of my company, SparkCognition. And that's really what I want to focus on today. That's really what I want to talk about today. What is this transformation, and how can we help our partners achieve that? So if you look at the impact that artificial intelligence can have, there are so many studies. I've cited one here, but in general, there's hardly a sector of our economy, there's hardly a sector of industry that is unimpacted by the innovations of artificial intelligence. So Accenture has done a number of estimates, and if you look at food services or education or social services, the profitability opportunity, if you apply AI in these industries, is tremendous. And in fact, McKinsey, on the other hand, says that you can add almost $6 trillion across 19 industries, not even all the industries out there, just across 19 industries annually. Now, 6 trillion, as you know, and if I've got my if my memory serves correctly, that is about 5 times Indonesia's current GDP. So we would be adding to the world 5 times in Indonesia's productivity. And that is a tremendous positive value, because you wouldn't be adding the population, you wouldn't be adding the burden on resources, you would just be adding the prosperity and the productivity. Tremendous. And that's really the impact that artificial intelligence can have. So the question then is, well, how do we use it? And there are so many misconceptions about artificial intelligence. Some people think artificial intelligence is a product. Some people think that artificial intelligence is an algorithm. Artificial intelligence is a science, much like mathematics and physics. It's an area of study that can yield many enhancements, many advantages, and it can be the core of many products and improvements. But at the heart of all of this is the cycle that I like to talk about, because it makes things very simple. There are artificial intelligence tools and technologies and algorithms that can perceive. What does that mean, to perceive? It means to see, it means to smell, it means to hear. All these senses that we have, we perceive with them. So one of the capabilities of artificial intelligence is it can perceive. And if you think about it right now, much of the work that's being done with artificial intelligence, particularly in things like facial recognition, handwriting recognition, OCR, all of this is happening in perception. Siri, the bulk of the work there is listening to your voice and figuring out what you're saying, perception, okay? The second part is decision making. Once you perceive, then you have to take in those perceived signals and you have to decide something. And then once you've decided something, you have to act. Now, deciding is a huge field, because in order to decide, you need to have common sense and knowledge and all of these things. And then you must act. And then finally, you must learn from your actions. Because when we as humans are participants in the world, we do things, we observe the results of those things, and then we learn from those things. We experience, as the Japanese say, kaizen, continuous improvement. And this is the loop here that this picture sort of indicates. So this is really the core of automating with AI. Think about the processes in your business. Where do you need them to automatically perceive? Where do you need them to automatically decide? Where do you need them to automatically act? And how can you continuously improve them by working in this idea of learning at a high level? So now, again, let me give you sort of 3 examples here. How does this loop manifest across 3 different industries? So to begin with, you might see the example of perception. Now, you can do perception such as recognizing a face, reading handwriting, as I mentioned. You can detect objects in video, for self-driving cars. This is very important. And then finally, you can read sensors. So you have a wind turbine, you have a large generator or a turbine combustion variety, or a pump or an aircraft, all sorts of industrial equipment that they give off sensor readings, heat, temperature, vibration, etc. These are examples of things to perceive, signals to perceive. Now, going beyond this, what are examples of decisions? So let's take that first sensor that we spoke about, which was seeing somebody's face and recognizing somebody's handwriting. So imagine you have a picture of a person affixed to a form, and you have an application that's been filled out. Well, that form might be submitted to an automated AI process, and the decision might be, do I approve or deny the loan manifested in this application? Similarly, when you detect objects from a video, that might be on a drone. If you look at the conflict that just took place in Nagorno-Karabakh, huge use of drones. What was going on there? Identify targets. Should I target? Should I not target? another kind of decision. I talked about sensors, all of the sensor data coming in. Now, when the sensor data coming in is the asset for whom I'm looking at all of the sensor data, will it fail or not? Sometimes it's not very simple. It's not about temperature went above this, or it's not these easy rules. There are complex interactions in these machines that can cause significant obfuscation as far as the baseline data is concerned, and you need to have sophisticated decision-making techniques to interpret that. Okay. Now, as we continue this kind of example, then what would the actions be? So remember, the first one was we perceived somebody's face and their handwriting. Then we decided whether or not to approve their loan. We looked at their application, we looked at who they are, we confirmed their identity, we probably went back and looked at databases that included their credit history, we looked at risk, we probably used a neural network model to assess whether this person is a good, financially responsible individual, and then we took an action. We created a credit card, we created an account in our banking systems, we created a letter automatically, we mailed that letter, and this was our action. Now this person is in our system. Similarly, in the case of perceiving a target, deciding to execute against that target, there might be a kinetic action. And similarly, on the turbine side, it might be that you got all that vibration data, you decided that the turbine must be impacted, must be shut down, and then you actually shut it down. Now, this is a simple action. A complex action might be that you control some levers, you fix some knobs, you turn things around, and you cause the state of the turbine to change, and you maybe even recover that turbine, all autonomously, okay? So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to make artificial intelligence in your companies real for you. What does it mean? What is artificial intelligence? It's not just about recognizing someone's face. It's about the full cycle of perceiving, deciding, acting, and learning. And with these three examples, what I'm trying to suggest is that these cycles, these loops exist in every industry, all over the place. And each one of these loops exists in large numbers inside different companies. So, for example, take a business. Now, if you want that business to be automated, if you want artificial intelligence to deliver value to that business, people say you have to go through a digital transformation. You have to go through an AI transformation. What does that mean? Does it mean you go buy this software and you hire 2 data scientists and then you've transformed yourself into an AI enterprise? Of course not. Because where the AI transformation starts is an analysis of what you do as a business. And every business has workflows. What I've tried to highlight on this slide are simple workflows that almost everybody would recognize. On top, you see a workflow of evaluating a new candidate, a new recruit to hire for your company. Today, you pay HR, you go to shows, you engage with universities, you look at resumes, they come in through email, they come in through all sorts of media, they come in through your website, you read them, you build a system to evaluate them, you then make a decision, then you bring them in, then you listen to them, you look at their facial expressions, a huge amount of perception activity occurs. And finally, a decision is made, and many times this decision is completely subjective. I liked the candidate, I didn't like the candidate, etc. So that pipeline of recruiting costs money, and that pipeline of recruiting has a measurable efficiency associated with it. Are you getting good people that are a good fit for your organization? Are those the kind of people that are happy doing what your company does? Is there a skills fit? All of those types of questions. Similarly, identify a potential customer online and autonomously create and deliver an offer. This is a marketing function. This is a demand generation function. There are now billions of people online. You can ship product, you can engage with people anywhere in the world. Finding that person and automatically sending them an offer is like automating the marketing function. Each one of these things that I'm describing can be broken down into individual pieces. Some are perception, some are decision making, some are action, and some are learning. What are each one of these little objects that power that pipeline? Each one of those objects is an independent model. It's a deep learning model, for example. And what you'll find is that the core of moving to an AI transformed enterprise is being completely conversant with model construction. Having a clear business-minded view of understanding what your company does, ranking all the workflows like we've done here by importance. What workflow affects the output, success, revenue generation ability, profitability of your company the most? Rank those workflows. Break them up into individual perception, decision, action, and learning elements, and then identify what models you need to build for each. When you do that, you have made a very concrete step towards transforming your company into an AI enterprise. These models live everywhere. They help you manage your suppliers. They help you enforce quality. They help you monitor factory output. They help you secure your warehouses. They help you acquire customers. They help you decrease the cost of sales. These AI models are, earlier Professor Echo was talking about 24/7. These models run 24/7, but even more than that. If you want 10,000 models to run, because you have that kind of capacity at a certain point in time and you need to deal with it, you can run 10,000 models. You can increase the capacity and the bandwidth of your organization. It's a revolutionary idea. And companies that begin to implement such technology and do it in a good way, they simply cannot be chased down by legacy companies. This is such a fundamental advantage in business that the day your competitor fully understands the concepts that we've talked about today and fully implements these concepts, it's a bad day for everyone else, because that person is about to leave on an exponential trajectory. It will be extremely hard to chase down. So artificial intelligence, while it may involve complex concepts, it is an existential issue for business. It's not a nice to have. It's not a, I wish I have it, I had it. Or, I read it about it in a magazine and it sounded pretty cool. This is an existential issue for business. And that's why we are so passionate about explaining to our large clients how they can make this transformation. And look, model-driven enterprises, which is what you become when you start looking at your workflows as models and you start to implement them, they change the game fundamentally. They're learning continuously. I made the point earlier, 24/7 operation, portability across geographies. You can train up models in similar geographies and move them. You can have models running in the US that are optimized to deal with Indonesian customers. What geography doesn't mean much anymore, because the interaction point with a client is all virtual or digital. The competence to carry out a task becomes part of the organization. Today, for example, you might have an employee that is particularly skilled in something, and not many others know how he or she does that job. And then they retire one day, and you realize that your organization has lost that skill. With artificial intelligence trained models, that doesn't happen. The model is constantly learning and getting better, and that intelligence becomes part of the organization. So the question then is, okay, so we understand we've got to move our companies into this model-driven enterprise world. How do we do that? We do some analysis, we apply model building tools, but what are the economics that allow us to succeed in this new world? But there are three things to be cognizant of. One is the cost of creating the model. You can hire PhDs, the best AI people in the world, and you can create those models. But the answer really is that if you go down that road, you will fail. There are only about 10 to 20,000 extremely adroit, expert artificial intelligence practitioners in the world. And there are a handful of companies where those people work. you will not be able to, as an ordinary enterprise, retain many of those people. So you've got to use AI to do that work too. You've got to use AI to build models. You've got to reduce the cost of these models because underlying data shifts, patterns shift, and these models need to be retrained. And then finally, the model needs to be inexpensive to execute. You can't have a model that is super expensive to run. The cost of running the model should be low. And the area that we have focused on with our Darwin product is exactly this. It is the factory that enables the transformation of a business into a model-driven enterprise. Here, what you're seeing is Darwin running, and you're seeing data being imported into Darwin. You're seeing an analyst without writing any code, without doing any PhD, machine learning, neural network design, simply providing inputs like, I want this predicted, I want these elements classified, these are all my applications, should I reject, should I accept? This is my workforce at my factory, this is the number of people that show up every day. How many people can I expect to show up over the next 3 days so I can do my capacity planning? All those types of problems you can put into Darwin, and it uses a revolutionary new algorithm that we've developed, which actually is a process called neuroevolution. It literally uses genetic algorithms to evolve the structure of a neural network. On the left, you see a picture, 500th generation. That is a network that Darwin has evolved on its own. No human being designed it. And that network is now perfect for solving the problem that we gave Darwin to solve. When you want to retrain, you don't have to do that as a human. You just ask Darwin to re-optimize the model, regenerate the model, and it'll do that. And within minutes, you start to see Darwin leveraging huge numbers of GPUs building these models for you. If you apply technology like this, you start moving your enterprise to a model-driven enterprise, you are dominant in your category. So how do you implement this AI strategy? So we talked about what you need to do, how you need to look at your business, what are the things to focus on, and what platforms you can use to make that transition. But now there are business questions. For example, do you know what your highest value pipelines are? How can AI alter the fundamental economics of your business? What are the key things, the key variables? Is it maintenance costs that are a driver for your business? Is it customer acquisition costs? Make those things the first things you try and target so that you drive the biggest effect on your business. And then finally, implementing a change like this is a big change. It's a change in thinking. The buildings stay the same, the rooms stay the same, but it's a huge change in thinking. It has to come down from leadership. The CEO, the chairman of the board, needs to take this on as a task that they own, as an initiative that they own. And we've found that all successful transformations have that in common, belief from the top. The other thing that I'll say, of course, there's a lot more to discuss on these, and we have a small catalog, a small book. You can reach out to us. We'll be happy to share that with you. A lot of specific examples of how companies have achieved this. The questions that you'll learn about here are, if you're a large company, like a large bank, do you have a centralized AI group, or do you decentralize AI and give every function their own AI people? What are the advantages and disadvantages of that? In our experience, just to wrap this up and keep some time for questions, in our experience, when you embark on a partnership with an AI expert, what we always advise our clients is that, look, pick something that means something to your business. A lot of times we say, okay, we want to work with a company, we'll pick the smallest problem. Whether we fail or whether we succeed, it won't matter. Don't do that. This is a strategic initiative. You should pick something that has huge potential, because when inevitably a difference is made in that area, your company will change, and that will give you the impetus to have everyone follow, to have everyone buy in to the transformation, and that's very important. Success needs to be defined. You need to know what the long-term outcomes, what are you trying to optimize for in the long term? What do you want your business to look like? Because all the model development you're doing is in support of that objective. And then finally, these pipelines, these models, the use of AI really needs to be focused on your clients. When we work with our clients, that's the universe for us. They're the most important, and that's what really we're optimizing for. And when our clients implement AI in turn, it's their clients that are the most important, because that is who is consuming ultimately the output of everything you do. So it has to be human first, and it's all of this AI in service of that human consumer of this incredibly sophisticated technology. So look, we're entering an incredibly exciting world. And while there are many, theoretical, philosophical things one can say about the excitement around AI, I feel that it's important now to use our time and our efforts to actually make a practical difference in the world. And how you do that is by making a move. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And I would encourage your audience today to look at this framework and think about what step will they take? How will they implement Darwin and other AI technologies in their enterprise to begin the transformation of Indonesian companies and regional companies into model-driven enterprises? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Amir Hussain. That's a very fantastic presentation from you, that AI is more than just buy software. So it's, I think it's a very comprehensive and holistic way out, and technologies, of course. Now we go into the Q&A sessions, and we already gathered some questions here that came to our chat box. It's from Bimantara Wijajala, Directors of Capacity and Transfer, Ministry of Finance. We are entering the digital era in which big data and AI are part of it. I want to hear from you how we strike the balance between the technology innovation and ethical conduct issues in regard with the personal data utilization and protections. Yes, this is a very common issues in Indonesia. Amir, your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a great question. My view there is that regulation on advanced technology within reason is important. When it comes to personally identifiable data, there are regulations in many parts of the world. The Europeans have sort of taken the lead in many ways and are perhaps most progressive in this area. And I think that in a world where financial systems run on really a few facts about you, in the US, for example, we have a social security number, a date of birth, a name, 2 addresses. And if you have that kind of information, perhaps a driver's license number, you can really, take over somebody's identity. So there is real harm that can be inflicted if this kind of information is not respected and kept in a safe way. That to me is the #1 problem. I know we hear more about how the information was used, for example, to target a piece of news to an individual. That also is something that needs to be looked into, the core information being targeted. But you would be surprised how many data breaches occur every year, how many times people practically have their identity stolen, have financial harm. Every aspect of somebody's data needs to be kept in trust. It is something that an individual owns and provides to a client or a vendor in trust, and that trust must be respected. And so I think regulation, and every country has to figure out how they want to go about it, what the schemes are. I mean, obviously there are some differences between the US and, let's say, Europe in that. I'm not very conversant with Indonesian regulation in this area, but obviously it's something that the government and the fine people of Indonesia need to come together and decide what can work for them.
Yeah, thank you. So that should be together with the lawmaker and also the business itself, and also the tech person who have to create the hand-in-hand about the security bridging. and probably an integrity pact for every new technology. Okay, thank you. The next questions we have from Basilio Araujo, Acting Assistant Deputy of Minister of Energy at Coordinating Ministry for Maritime and Investment Affairs Indonesia. The question is, how AI can help fishermen to send fish direct to the dish? Okay, very short and to the core questions. Can AI help the fishermen?
I love that question. And the gentleman or lady that sent that question is half a poet. So that's fantastic. They even incorporated rhyme into the question.
Yeah.
So the answer, of course, is that if you go back to my presentation, I was talking about perception, decision, action. So if you want to do this, of course you can do this. There are autonomous watercraft being built by companies all over the world. The largest navies are now deploying craft like these, but even for civilian applications and environmental applications, these craft are used quite frequently. So a craft like that, with the ability, for example, to deploy nets, with the ability to have underwater imagery that would allow you, or even sensors that detect whether the certain level of weight is being pulled in the nets. And when those conditions are met, maybe there's an underwater camera that confirms that you've got a certain number of fish that might be your target. You pull the net up, and there are robotic implements on the boat itself that might be able to interact with the net, empty the net, and perhaps there's onboard refrigeration. And you have that vessel return to shore. Loading and unloading, logistical handling, we're now getting really good at that because, in the US, you have so many delivery services, particularly during the pandemic. There's one guy that drives an Amazon or a UPS truck or a FedEx truck, and they have to deal with so many packages. How those are handled, unloaded, etc. It's become quite an art. And more robotic automation will go into that. So same thing on a ship container that might come off a ship, and then you might unload the fish. Those fish then might be fed directly into an intake, and you can probably use cameras to identify what kind of fish they are. You could probably look at whether some need to be accepted or rejected, and all of that can be done with computer vision. So I can keep going on, but the point is that the core technologies that are necessary to do something like this, they exist. What we need more of in the world is people that are willing to take on challenges like these. They won't have to invent new algorithms. They won't have to invent fundamental advancements in AI. They just need to apply AI. That's a huge opportunity. And if I could give one piece of advice to my brothers and sisters in Indonesia, what I would say is that's an area that you can really start to make a big difference. Apply AI. The research, do that in your universities. Come up with new algorithms. Work with professors and researchers all over the world. Of course, do all of that. Bring the best ideas from everywhere. But within the country, look at what can be done. Ask questions like this. Brilliant question. And then build the systems that do this.
Okay, thank you very much. And also, I heard that there's GPS systems that can allocate the fish wherever they are, and then the fishermen just go there. That's also one of the AI technology. Yes, next questions. Do we have next questions? Yes, from Adrian Lembong, Technology Directors, Adaro Power. The question is, what kind of internet connectivity do you require, and how do you deal with the lack of reliable internet connection at some of the industrial sites in Indonesia? Okay. Also, so internet connection is also one of the main problem here. Can you give any comments or suggestions on that, Amir?
To be honest with you, this is not a very big problem for us because our systems have been designed to deal with environments where, for deliberate reasons, communications are intercepted, and particularly in many scenarios where you might have interference generated deliberately to prevent access. Our cybersecurity system doesn't require regular updates. It doesn't require regular network connectivity. It has local AI that can deal with threats that it's never seen before. Similarly, our industrial, predictive maintenance systems, they can be deployed at the edge. In other words, they can be deployed within the manufacturing facility, within the industrial facility. They don't have to go back to the cloud. They can be deployed in the cloud as well. But at a site where you have trouble like this, you can deploy quite conveniently in what we call a hybrid cloud. You can have all of the relevant compute locally so that all of the decisions are being made at the edge and none of your operations are impeded in any way. So yeah, this is something we've thought about quite a lot. And I think if Adrian has this challenge, then perhaps he should have a conversation with Hiroshi. That's something easily that we can walk him through.
Okay, thank you. That's an interesting tip and also very useful. So at the end, we're going to talk more with Hiroshi and Philippe about what kind of AI solution that we can offer for your solutions in the industry. Okay, the last question is from Fajar Hidayat, Director of Smart Pro Solusi Asia. In these highly uncertain times, how can AI help companies adapt or react to the changes in the business world and will happen to the laggard? Yeah, the old generation. Yeah. Amir, your thoughts?
Well, no, I wouldn't say that the laggards are the old generation. I think there could be laggards in the young generation as well. I think the point is, it's not about young or old, it's about your willingness to embrace the future. And fundamentally, if we cannot bring ourselves to embracing the future, then we by definition are becoming irrelevant, because you live in the present for a moment. You have lived in the past, but it's no longer there. The longest part of your remaining life will be spent in the future by definition. So we have to prepare ourselves for the country where we are going to live in. The country that we consistently move to is the country of the future. So that to me is an important point. The second thing is, what will happen to the laggards? Let me be very clear. If people think that they can now be competitive in 99% industries of the world without embracing technology in an absolutely intense way, they are wrong, and they will simply be part of the past. The only thing is that it's the kind of situation where you've got that the frog in the glass on boil, and sometimes the frog doesn't realize that the temperature of the water has become too high.
Yes.
It may not jump. And that is the situation. Sometimes the change comes, but every day there's a little bit, and you don't realize overall how much change has come.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be like that frog. So what you want to do is you want to take the lead. And instead of thinking of this as a threat and worrying about what your competitors will do, think about what you will do to your competitors. And that's the way in which you change the world, by taking the bull by the horns, as they say here in Texas, and making a difference. The other part is, how can, in these uncertain times, AI help companies? Look, imagine the uncertainty of these times. One of the things is that the thing that I feel the most is human contact has been minimized because it's become a safety issue. Robotics, automation can improve touchless experiences everywhere, right? Yes. We live in a world that was designed for human touch. How can, over time, how can we embed physical systems with more intelligence that enable more touchless experiences? If you just think about that, if you think about a drive-through and picking up food, if you think about going to a government office, standing in line and looking for a card, if you think about going to taking your car in for service, think about all the interactions that the old world, the pre-COVID world, required us to have. How can we use automation in each one of those workflows to minimize contact? And that's something that is a huge economic opportunity. Think about it. The first dealership, the first service station in Jakarta, which allows completely touchless service. that comes on TV, it becomes a huge phenomenon. People start talking about it. People start thinking, if they hadn't even heard about that dealership, now they want to go and see, what is this dealership that's so innovative? And they get a lead. So this is how innovation happens. Some brave person has to take the first step.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with you that we make this uncertainty time. For example, this pandemic has become the enabler of the companies to move forward, to embrace the new technology, and that's what happens right now. Okay, I believe we have so much questions, but the time constraint is inevitable. But I want you to have a closing statement and to anchor down once again on the importance of the digital transformation. It's where the industry should start and how they can embrace them into their strategic business plan. Amir, closing statement.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think this is the most transformational technology of the century. If you want to understand the future of business, you have to understand automation. Automation is enabled not just by mechanical levers and gears and motors and batteries, it's mainly enabled by software. And the kind of software that does that is the software that is based on the algorithms of artificial intelligence. Identify opportunities where you can automate a perception action, where you can automate a decision action, or you can actually act autonomously in the real world. Start small. Think about areas that you think if you impacted them, it would create a big economic uplift. Think about your business as Lego blocks that all come together. Which is the Lego block that you want to focus on first? And work through that transformation in that organized way. Think about the economics, reduce the cost of building these models, reduce the cost of maintaining these models, use automated building technology, and be brave. Get leadership to support these initiatives, and ideally leadership would be the place from where these ideas would be coming. Support the organization to make this great transformation. Reinvent your companies, because if you don't, you will be disrupted for sure.
Yes, reinvent your company. That's the key word for this session. Once again, thank you very much, Mr. Amir Hussain, the founder and CEO of SparkCognition. And we believe what your remarkable presentation will help lots of industry in Indonesia. And of course, for those of you who would like to know more about the innovation solution, we're going to talk more with Hiroshi and Philippe at the end of the program to know more about the service that we can provide. Thank you very much, Mr. Amir Hussain. Let's give a round of applause, our virtual round of applause for Mr. Amir Hussain. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Hope to see you in Indonesia very soon.
Will do. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that was Amir Hussain, the CEO and founder of SparkCognition, and also the author of this book. For those of you who wants to or have asked the questions, jadi Bapak dan Ibu yang ingin menanyakan pertanyaan, akan 10 penanya teraktif dan beruntung akan mendapatkan buku yang merupakan karangan dari Amir Hussain tentang apa-apa yang sudah diberitakan tadi. We're going to move on to our next session. It's getting more interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, many parties ranging for organizations, institutions, to corporations believe that artificial intelligence can make work easier. However, there are still many parties who have not used this technology for a number of reasons. A survey says that around 112 Indonesian companies engage in IT in other fields, but only about 14% of them already use AI, 14%, as their core of business strategy. Then how do you utilize AI technology as part of your future business strategy? Is it only for a certain industry? Next, we're going to listen to an interesting sharing that will be delivered by our expert. She was the President Director of IBM Indonesia from year 2000 until 2008. She currently an independent commissioner to two publicly listed company, PT Anabatic Technology and PT OCBC NESP. She was the chairperson of Bandung Institute of Technology Board of Trustee. Her experience in business and technology has brought her to various advisory roles to the government. Ladies and gentlemen, with no further ado, please welcome Ibu Insinyur Betty Ali Syahbana. How are you, Bu Betty?
I'm fine, thank you. How about you?
I'm good. Thank you for joining us.
It has been an exciting session.
Exactly. Yes, again, Bu, please do enlighten us with your presentation, the digital transformation utilizing AI application during economic transition. The floor is yours.
Okay, good morning. I think it's still morning, almost noon. To everyone, I'm very excited to be here today, also to all the organizers and distinguished speakers. Let me first share my screen. Okay. The topic that is given to me is the digital transformations utilizing AI applications during the economic transitions. And in these topics, I would like to cover 4 areas. Number 1 is COVID-19 and digital transformations, and then AI at the center of digital transformations. And number 3 is a holistic approach to digital transformations and to the AI implementations. And number 4, also a very important topic, is talent, reskilling, and investment. Let me start with looking at the statistic of the internet usage in Indonesia. The ABGI, the Associations of Internet Service Providers, just recently issued the survey report. And at the moment, we have 196.7 million of internet users, which is 73.7% of the total populations. Compared to last year, this is an increase of 21 million. And then we have 124% of mobile connections, because a lot of us use more than one. Also, we are very active in social media with 160 million users, and we spend a lot of time online, be it internet access and in using social media. With these activities, you can imagine so many data out there which can be used to fuel the artificial intelligence to work for us. Now, and then we are also seeing that during this pandemic, technology has helped maintain access to basic needs during the PSBB. You can imagine if we have to be working at home, praying at home, having entertainment at home without technology, life will be so much more difficult. But now we can do essential goods and services, get essential goods and services from home. We can have a safe social interactions and entertainment, remote online learning, as well as health and safety responses. Telemedicine is becoming more popular. And what is amazing, we are seeing also the small medium enterprises can transform utilizing technology and continue to survive in this environment. Now, here is the data from Economy Southeast Asia 2020 report. We are seeing that through this pandemic, we are seeing exponential growth of digital consumer who will stay. So if you look into the new consumers to internet economy services, this is Indonesia data, the new consumers are 37%. Of that 37%, actually 93% of them will continue even after COVID. So this is the next chart is on the average hours spent online per day. So within the IT community, we are jokingly saying that, for 2020, the CIO of the year is really the COVID-19 because it has successfully transformed a lot of us into using digital and providing services through digital. And here, the economy reaches 44 billion despite headwinds. So 2015, it was only $5 billion. 2019, it was 40. And then 2020 become 44. And then it is projected that it will grow, it will have an annual compound growth rate of 23% through 2025. So we cannot ignore this. We have to use this to our benefit. So COVID-19 has expedited digital transformations, and the digital experience leader continuously raised the bar on personalizations to the point where they sometimes anticipate customer needs before the customer is even aware of them, and offer highly tailored services at the right time through the right channel. On this, I'll share an experience. When I was still the chairperson of the Board of Trustees of Bandung Institute of Technology, I have to travel very often, Bandung, from Jakarta to Bandung and going back. And one way is about 2 to 3 hours. So both way, it will be almost 5 to 6 hours. And I would like to use that time productively. So usually I read ebooks during this travel time. But then after sometimes I feel dizzy reading ebooks. And what happens, suddenly I get an offer, a free trial of Audible book from Amazon. And I right away, I try it and I fell in love with that audio book. And now, all the travel that I have, including when I'm at home, I listen to Audible book because no longer I need to be feeling dizzy. So this is anticipating what the customer needs and offering just what they need. And, this raised the bar for everybody else because then, for instance, taking example of myself, if I receive offer that is not for me, I feel irritated. Yeah, so this is the importance of using the technology, using artificial intelligence to provide personalizations of our services. Now, I'll go to the next topic, AI at the center of digital transformation. So where can AI play? I would categorize in 3 big categories. Number 1, boost revenue through increased personalizations of services to customers, through uncover new and previously unrealized opportunities based on an improved ability to process and generate insights from vast troves of data. Number 2, lower costs through efficiencies generated by higher automations, reduced error rates, and better resource utilizations. The most commonly used AI technologies are robotic process automations for customer service divisions. Prof. Eko earlier mentions what 24 hours, this is some of it, because customers may need our support any time of the day with different kind of requests, and this will help. And then manage risk. Machine learning techniques do detect fraud and support underwriting risk management. For instance, in a bank, where can AI play in a bank? Now, I take this from AI Bank of the Future. Can bank meet the AI challenge from McKinsey and Company? It can start from the front office with smile to pay facial scanning. Like in China, they actually just get off bypass the credit card. We can just use the smile to pay. Yeah, And then the loan officers can analyze using the micro expressions analysis. This is the virtual loan officers. And based on that expressions, they can make a decisions whether the bank should give loan or not. Yeah? And then also we have conversational bots for basic services requests. And probably humanoid robot in branches to serve customers. Now at the back, we can use biometric like video, voice, print to authenticate and authorize the various processes based on the authority of each person. We can use machine learning to detect fraud pattern, cyber security attack, which is very important for banks. Machine vision and NLP to scan and process documents, real-time transactions analysis for risk monitoring. So this is a very comprehensive list of how AI can play in a bank. And similarly, in various industries, we can see a lot of opportunity to use AI to support the digital transformations. Now, if you look into digital ecosystem, we are seeing online platform have transformed the way consumers discover, evaluate, and purchase goods and services. Yeah? And online platforms are focusing on core and select adjacency. For instance, at the top, if the online platform in transportations like Gojek, like Grab, their focus in parcel delivery, food delivery, and then in digital financial services for payments. Yeah, and the next agencies is on travel, lifestyle, media, and other transport modes. And similar things to e-commerce, say Bukalapak or Tokopedia, they are on online grocery, digital financial services, and then those are the adjacent area they're focusing. So the point here is companies will need to rethink how they participate in this digital ecosystem and use artificial intelligence to harness the full power of data available from these new sources. We need to find ways to work together with this online platforms so that we can have a collective, collaborative success. Now, topic number 3 is a holistic approach. So in doing the digital transformations and leveraging the power of AI, we need to look at it holistically. So we have to look at the technology infrastructures, the omni-channels, make sure that the various channels that we interact with clients are working collaboratively, connected seamlessly. And then we need to make sure that we have the applications programming interface to allow us to actually work collaboratively with the digital ecosystems, with the platform players. And then we need to have the big data infrastructures to be able to process both structured and unstructured data. And then on top of that is the data-driven business. We need to make sure our data on the data quality management and the analytics and CRM. And then on top of that, there is the AI capabilities, the AI power decisions making. I think the previous speakers have talked about the NLP, the voice script analysis, the virtual agents, bots, the computer visions, the facial recognitions, the behavior analytics, and all of that to achieve our business objective at the top. Yeah. Now, AI capabilities and AI powered decisions making, I will elaborate just a little bit. AI techniques can either fully replace or augment human judgment to produce significantly better outcomes like higher accuracy and speed, enhanced experience for customers, like more personalized interactions and offering. It can produce actionable insights for employees, which customers to contact first with next best actions recommendations, stronger risk managements like earlier detections of likelihood of default and fraudulent activities. Now, I'll finish this with the fourth topic, which is talent reskilling and investment. AI is here to stay. We need to persist and learn to use AI. And for that, we need to develop skills through projects. Reskilling groups of people who work together and increase their collective intelligence. People learn faster in projects and distribute these experts into product team across the company to ensure the entire organizations could benefit from AI-related reskilling. We should have a structured approach to growing our talent base, reskilling internal employees, hiring external experts, work with partners, like what earlier mentioned by Mr. Amin. And also we need to adopt an agile development approach in which the creations of the reskilling process follows a series of sprints to enable fast feedback and deliver early value to internal customers. So no longer we need to wait until the very big projects end. We can actually using approach, the agile approach, and continuously check if so far this has addressed what is the objective of this initial success. So let me stop there and let's do a question and answer first.
Okay, thank you, Ibu Betty, for the elaboration and also the presentation about how the business have to get ready to embrace the digital transformation and how to utilize it from the small scale, like personalization for your service, and then a holistic approach, and also the preparation of the talent. Now we're going to move on to the questions and answer sessions from our audience or for our participants that's already coming to our inbox. From Inggita Noto Susanto, Partnership Development Specialist of UNDP. UNDP menggelar hackathon untuk menjaring solusi melawan pandemi dengan menggunakan machine learning dan AI. Apa next step untuk dari pembicara dalam menggunakan AI pencapaian SDG? So UNDP is going to have a hackathon for harnessing the solution of pandemic using ML and AI. What's the next step to use AI for achieving SDGs? Your thoughts, Ibu Betty, on these matters?
Okay, thank you, Ibu Inggita, for the questions. I noticed that UNDP has been actively working on various initiatives to make AI be used for social good. Now, for ourselves, related to this, we are actually focusing on unbanked, especially women. So we are working with a fintech and online platform to use AI for credit scoring. So we are hoping through these initiatives, more and more people can get benefit from the financing, and especially women, because there are a lot of potentials there, and if we can empower them, it will be a great contributions to the society.
Okay, so it's not just about financial literacy, but also financial inclusiveness. Is that
Access.
What you're saying?
Yeah, inclusiveness, correct. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ibu Inggita. Let's move on to, is there any questions, other questions from Maria Chin, General Manager of PT Kreasi Studio Ubud. AI implementation is inevitable. Will it change humanity in the future? In terms of humanity, the relationship between human. Do you think that AI will change its course with the intervention?
This is a very good questions from Ibu Maria Chin. AI is a little bit like electricity. You know, everybody will use it, and AI actually can be a force of good. For instance, this AI, especially machine learning and deep learning, has found popular applications in clinical cancer research in recent years. Cancer predictions performance has reached new heights, and AI technology can help improve cancer diagnostic and prognostic and continue improving human health in the future. So when we find cancer early, we can cure it. And also in learning, for years, we try to have, we realize that every students are different, and every student have particular needs, and it will be at the moment it was a challenge for teachers to provide individuals experience based on the need of the students, and AI will allow to a level of differentiations that was impossible before. So and AI here is to liberate us from having to do dangerous work, and AI also can liberate us from doing routine job and push us to do what we love. And when we are happy, actually, we will be a better person, will be able to support others. So I would say that AI can be used to improve the humanity, make us more human. That will be my answers to that question.
Okay. What I would like to add, what in terms of business, Bu, in some points that you said that's a personalization to the service, and human touch sometimes is one of the touch, also one of the service that we use. It's going to be a difference with the AI because less of human touch in the personalization on business. Your thoughts?
Yeah. In my opinion, every leaders in the organization should make a decisions which part of the services would be still kept by human, and which part will be done by AI through automations. I think every organizations have a different set of DNA and values and strength. So we should use AI to support our strength. So it will be different answers for different organizations on how we will use AI. But in my opinion, AI should be seen as tools for us to better serve our customers, to improve our productivity, to better manage our risk, and every organization will implement it according to their visions, their strategies, and their values.
Brilliant answer. Thank you, Ibu Betty. Do we have another questions? Okay. This is from Nadia Rima Estirini, consultant eMarka. How do you define AI? Is there any grading of AI implementation, low, middle, advanced, or tier? Could you give some example in terms of in a business wise? Do you have any benchmark of that?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Ibu Nadia, for the questions. You know, I would not grade AI implementations. I would rather suggest to focus on how AI can support you in the business. Every business will be different. Yeah. So, for instance, once we have, every business have goals, have challenges, and as we address that challenges, we look at how can AI support us in solving, in addressing those challenges. Yeah. For instance, AI is uniquely equipped to, machine learning algorithm bring distinct strength in terms of their predictive power given high quality training data. The applications of machine learning algorithms for credit card fraud is one example where AI particular strengths make it very valuable tools in assisting with long-standing problem. In the past, fraudulent transactions were generally only identified after the fact. Now, with this AI, bank can detect and block fraud in real time. Yeah, because bank has already have large volumes of data. So the machine learning can be trained using those data, and they can predict before it happens, and make us prevent those fraudulent activities to happen. So again, I would not grade the implementation. I would rather see artificial intelligence as a source that we can use, technology that we can use to support our success.
Yeah, I agree with you both. So it's not a competition, but it's the result that how can we feel the result and absorb it into our greater good in our business. Yeah, I think we have another question, the last one. It's from Adrian Tisna, President Nusa Global Kirana. In regards with your suggestions of reskill and invest in talent, what type of talent are needed for this next generation, this business process? Is human capital the most important parameter in this industrial revolution 4.0? Okay. With the scarcity of talent, what kind of industry should do to enhance their talent?
Thank you very much for Pa Adrian Tisna for the very good questions. I've just read the report from the World Economic Forum about the future of jobs report. Yeah, this report maps the jobs and skills of the future. Future means next 5 years, and the top skills and skills group which employers see as rising in prominence in the lead up of 2025 include groups such as critical thinking and analysis, problem solving, skills in self-management such as active learning, because technology comes very fast. We need to be able to continuously learn. Yeah, what we learn before in university is not enough. We need to continue to own the responsibility of learning. So we need to actively learn, and then resilience, stress tolerance, and flexibility. So those are the skills that are required. For that, companies need to invest in reskilling, in the developments. Also need to implement a different type of leadership style, the coaching style, which actually more empowering, more invite participations. So the decisions is no longer top down. Instead, everybody participate in making decisions. And also, we need to invest in better metrics of human and social capital through the adoptions of ESG and environmental, social, and governance, because we need to make sure that AI is used for the better of the company, the society at large.
Wow. Okay, that's a very comprehensive answers and also presentation for the digital transformation utilizing application during economic transition. But let's close these sessions with your closing statement. Usually the obstacle comes from the internal part, which is the top management. I want you to give a positive feedback or encouragement, especially for our leaders, on how to become the digital leaders in your closing statement. Bu Betty.
Thank you. Yes, this is an exciting time. There are a lot of opportunities, of course, a lot of challenge. And as you said, so leadership actually play a very important role. As we look at these changes, both in technologies, environment, challenges, our choice is, are we going to use this, embrace this challenge, these technologies, and make our organization more successful today and in the futures? Are we going to wait, or are we going to blame the environment? And I'm hoping that as the leaders, we need to embrace and we need to lead and we need to portray a very positive futures of our organizations and empower our team, use coaching style leaderships to bring our people together. And the best leaders are the best learners. So make sure we as leaders continue to learn, including technology, and use them in the benefit of our organizations and society.
Wow, that's a very great message from Ibu Betty Alishabana. A great leader is a great learner. That's how we start the digital transformation utilizing application during economic transition. Once again, round of applause for Ibu Betty, everybody, virtually, and yeah, for the great presentation and sharing. Thank you once again, Ibu Betty Alishabana, for joining us in this
pleasure.
H Digital Transformation. Best of luck of you, and then we'll meet you soon. Thank you. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, the participant of the Age of Digital Transformation, we're already passing the half of the session of this program. And now we are coming at the very last speaker, the last but not least, on the Age of Digital Transformation, enabling organization on artificial intelligence during the market transition. And once again, we encourage you to give us questions, because the 10 questions, the 10 people who ask the questions will get the Sentient Machine books by Amir Hussain, who going to tell you a lot about AI. Now we move on to our next sessions. After listening to the best practice from the tech company figure, academics, and also industrial figure, now we learn about other industry that implementing many technologies that enable them to move forward, which is oil and gas. The last but not least speaker on our event must be the highlight of the program, because he's one of the icon in the oil and gas industry. We're going to learn so many things about his perspective from his experience. Start from the pandemic of COVID-19 until the startup that disrupt many industry in this digital era. The next video that we're going to see, it's an interview between and conducted by Mr. Amir Hussain, the founder of the CEO of SparkCognition. And we're going to see how our next speaker imparting his wisdom on these subjects, especially on digital transformation, artificial intelligence in particular. And this video was recorded at SparkCognition's Time Machine Digital Conference. Also join us to help answer the questions later on for our speakers regarding the topic. Is the head of APAC, Mr. Hiroshi Kinoshita, and also the VP Solution from SparkCognition, Mr. Philip Herb. And they're going to explain a detail about AI solution. Ladies and gentlemen, with the theme, leveraging emerging technologies to drive business forward, please welcome the one and only Lord John Brown of Medingley, former CEO of BP.
finally, what is bound to be an eye-opening discussion between Amir Hussain and Lord John Brown of Mattingly. Lord Brown is the former CEO of BP and has recently joined SparkCognition's board of directors. He was voted most admired CEO by Management Today every year between 1999 and 2002 and was knighted in 1998. He's had an illustrious career and brings more than 5 decades of experience spanning energy, engineering, government, and higher education in both the United Kingdom and abroad. I'll now pass it over to you, Amir and Lord Brown.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Michelle. Lord Brown, it's wonderful to be connected. Thank you very much for joining us.
It's a great pleasure.
Lord Brown, the hardest part for me coming into this conversation is just that every time I speak to you, I have this sort of, there's the Marcus Aurelius effect. I learn so much. And you know so much. So the biggest challenge was how many questions can I fit to give the audience just a glimpse into your deep thinking. Where I'd like to start is really going back to our conversation in New York. I just read your brilliant new book, Make, Think, Imagine. And I read it as an ode to engineering and to science. And I absolutely loved the journey that you took through that book, showing how we all stand on the shoulders of giants. And this shared prosperity, if there is, while different nations have different flags, the flag of science is the sum total of the contributions of all peoples over time. And both as a unifying theme as well as essentially a motivation to act even in the now, to do that one thing that truly impacts the human condition in a positive way. I thought the book was absolutely brilliant. So as you look at all of the technological prowess that you've been exposed to, that you yourself have, you're an engineer by training, and you compare our capability on the one hand with our response to COVID-19 on the other, it seems that the response should have been better. Why do you think it wasn't better?
I think it wasn't better because we really find it always very difficult to think beyond the edges of our experience. And this was one of the very few global impacts of nature coming back and doing something which was more powerful than a president or a prime minister or a nation or an army could do. Began to infect people, and no one was quite sure what to do. We had the tools and techniques, there's no doubt about it. We just didn't deploy them very well, and we didn't deploy them very well because we didn't understand, not everybody understood the information which comes to them. And it's typical of a crisis is at the beginning of a crisis, information is garbled. And it's very important for leaders to be able to sift and sort the impressions from the reality and make a decision under enormous uncertainty. Again, that's something we're trained for, but I don't think we did that very well. We didn't cover ourselves with glory in the world as a whole. I think some nations did. Germany is a very good example, which deployed industrial processes to test, trace, and track people to limit the infection rate. And it was all about data, and it was having the tools and techniques ready to go. And this is the big lesson for us. I think we all have to remember that having things in store to respond, having stockpiles of things which we don't think we really need, but we will one day, and having them tested, all these are very important responses to crises.
Thank you, Lord Brown. As one of the technologies that might have a role to play both in dealing with COVID-19 as well as future pandemics, particularly in the areas of planning, might be artificial intelligence with modeling techniques and so on. And once again, going back to your book, you do cover artificial intelligence and you speak to several AI innovators in that book as well. So given your exposure to this field, what is your view of technologies that will be built in the next 3 to 5 years that will be most relevant to dealing with a scenario like COVID-19?
Well, perhaps we can stick with COVID-19, the present pandemic. I think it's important to remember it's not past, and that we should deploy all the data science, all the artificial intelligence we have to try and identify what actually controls the rate of infection, who is actually infected, why the response is what it is. And I think we don't understand that yet. Certainly, all the experts I talk to, the very best ones say, well, we can speculate, but we don't fully understand yet. It's early days. So we must deploy all of this today, and we must continue to deploy that. And the tools we have today are infinitely better than we had in the past. We're able to assess the meaning of databases. We're able to really identify what's right and wrong through learning and backwards and forward testing, all these sorts of things which we can do on a massive scale today. So I think that's very important. I think the big advances will still be in medical science, where both from the testing of drugs, where we could do that almost on a simulated basis, perhaps in the future. I'm not sure we're going to create a digital twin of a complete human being, but we might for some responses. And the data that we can collect and analyze and deploy for both diagnosis and prognosis of human health is very important. It's going to require a lot of work, a lot of insight, and actually a lot of behavior change, because people will get concerned with centralized databases about themselves, especially if they're controlled by governments. I think people get quite concerned about privacy and freedom if they see governments potentially being able to understand something about them that they don't want anyone to know.
And you know, what you said earlier on about trying out a whole number of different techniques, making use of the data that we do have, taking the opportunity to test and validate all these various different hypotheses and techniques that we've developed, that obviously is sort of very similar to let 1,000 flowers bloom, that kind of strategy. And I've often wondered, not just in the area of artificial intelligence, but broadly, now that the core enablement, easy education through online means, inexpensive electronic components, tools, the DIY movement, open source software, a lot of the enablement to allow more and more people to get into an inventive frame of mind and to be engineering minded, even if they aren't degree holding engineers. The point is that you can have a far more inventive society with all this enablement than we do now. But for some reason, when it comes to trying out a lot of things, go fly drones in a variety of different places, even though logically it might seem that it's safe because there's no one on the ground, there are still laws and regulations that prevent you from doing that. There is quite a bit of regulation that seems to prevent 1,000 flowers from blooming. Yet at the same time, there are calls for even more regulation on the large tech giants, and I should differentiate these two things. Given that you're recommending in an environment like this, we should go out and we should try a lot of different things, there is a regulatory barrier or filter to that. How do you balance and reconcile these two questions?
Well, regulations come in all shapes and sizes for different reasons. I think the ones that really no one will argue with is the question of public and private safety. So we really do, I think, as great nations, need to make sure that no one can experiment on individuals or people without their full knowledge and consent, and actually under very strict controls. That, I think, is something we all hold dear to us. So we don't want people experimenting with illegal drugs. We don't want them to experiment with machines that could turn and kill people, sort of ultra big robots and things like that. So I think those regulations go without saying. And for those areas, we have to try, as insofar as possible, to use simulation or digital twins and responses to digital twins to do a lot of the work to produce the prototype that's actually safe. And then we can go out and test it. So I think that's an important change in the way in which we think about design and manufacturing that needs to be reflected probably in more advanced regulations. I think regulations to do with overreaching, having too big a market share, chilling competitors to come into your sector, or behaving in a way which is not actually what you were originally set up to do. All these things do beget new regulations. I come from my original background in the oil industry. I think we were probably the first genuinely regulated industry, and the one which was really broken up, because while I think many consumers liked what Mr. Rockefeller was doing, absolutely nobody in the industry did, because he chilled down the industry and stopped entrants coming in. So the Standard Oil company was broken up. I think there are analogies today, and people are thinking about what on earth to do with these very large companies that actually spread information and data from one place to the other. And that, I think, is unfinished business, and it will continue to be a big debate both here and in Europe.
What areas is it becoming clear the lessons that we need to learn, given our inability to handle COVID-19 as efficiently as we would have liked? In what areas do you think we need to focus our attention? What new systems need to be built? What needs to change in our societies to be more resilient in the face of a future such pandemic?
So I think it's the consequences of the pandemic are only really becoming very clear now. And quite a few of the trends that look like they are related to the pandemic actually were in place before COVID-19, the tragedy of COVID-19. And what's happened is, I think COVID-19 is, as it were, accelerated time. It's pushed things together. It's made the changes much more significant. So there were changes in work practice. We now see today that we are accelerating those. Artificial intelligence is changing the way in which efficiency is defined in the industrial landscape. And that, I think, is essential. You know, we don't anymore, surely we don't want to tear down equipment just to maintain it because it's January the 1st. We should be maintaining it when it says, I need to be maintained. And that's something I know that SparkCognition is deeply involved in. So there are a lot of trends which are being pushed. We have to become more efficient. It's very clear to come out of this economic downturn. Secondly, we have to redefine efficiency. I think a lot of people were probably trained for just-in-time inventory, global supply chains, and not to bother too much about the resilience of that. But actually, it's shown up that it's not very resilient. We need to rethink what we mean by inventories. In some cases, I think for strategic minerals, and oil is no longer, I think, in this category, but maybe lithium and rare earths are, one has to think very carefully about stockpiling. Supply chains clearly are broken, but that is because we also have layered on top of COVID-19 and accentuated by it a big change in the terms of trade, global trade around the world. I think that's really mostly illustrated by what's happened between the United States and China, the two great powers in the world now, that are at loggerheads about where advantage lies and who is doing what to whom. And that has broken a lot of the hopeful global trading standards. I think, I recall when WTO was hammered into place, it never really worked. And now it looks like it's it's certainly not supported by the United States. And if it's not supported by the US, I see little point in having it, frankly. So a lot of these things are changing in front of our very eyes, and the change is being pushed. We shouldn't say everything is attributed to COVID-19, but it certainly is accelerated time.
I completely agree with you. I've seen that at a micro level also, directions that companies were thinking about taking, but on a slow rate. The fact that this crisis struck, they've accelerated many of those actions, and I think that also happens at a macro rate. So if we play these out, one of the big geopolitical themes right before we got into COVID-19, as you rightly said, was this whole topic of US-China trade. And it's not just the topic of US-China trade, it's a global question, really. It's a world either that lives under the globalized norm, where there is essentially one global supply chain for various different items and elements, and other parts of the world get to benefit from it, or there is a fractured supply chain. And in a fractured supply chain, there are fractured markets, and it's almost a Google versus Apple situation. It's in Apple's interest to create services that make people use Apple phones, and Google vice versa. So it's an either or very quickly instead of an and. Globalization was an and. From what you see now, and we're asking you a very unfair, oracular question, but please humor us. From what you see now, where do you see this going? Do you see a return to something that looks more like globalization, or do you see a development into a new state, a unique state, where we have a competitor with whom we are disconnected economically in large degree, and that has economic prowess and inventiveness at the same level or better than us?
Well, I think much like I did in my book, I think it's very easy to speculate, but it's worth going back in history just to see what happened in the past, bearing in mind that history doesn't repeat itself, but Mark Twain was, of course, right by saying it does rhyme. So I lived in the States at a time when, for example, there were plenty of trade barriers between the US and the rest of the world, and between the UK and Europe and the rest of the world. It wasn't, for example, possible to export oil from the United States, and the regulations on shipping were very extreme to protect industries in the US. And I think everybody has a view in their own nation of what is fair and what needs to be done to the nation to protect the livelihood of the majority. And definitions of it's fair to me, it's not fair to you, of course vary. It depends where you stand. There's no absolute level here. And so people look at it and say, actually, I don't like globalization because it doesn't work for me. Japan, for example, was a nation that originally, when I remember growing up, produced second-rate electronics. And slowly it began to do rather more than that, and actually become a rather a country with a significantly valued currency. I do recall the shock when Japan decided to buy the Rockefeller Center. And I think people began to think that maybe this is not good because Japan will take over the world. The rest of it is history, we understand it. So there are moments when people say, this is not fair to me, I want to protect. Protection, of course, is very valid politically, but what it does do, if you're not careful, is featherbed industry. It saps out from the world the strong competitive forces that I think over the 20-odd years of competition has certainly created advances that probably wouldn't otherwise happen without global competition. But we see today, I think, the US drawing a line, certainly in when it comes to technology. And I've always believed that that's been one of the big bases for the breakdown with China. It's science and engineering, and no one wants to be bested by somebody else. China's grown up become, it grew from a sleeping giant to a big giant, and it is doing, perhaps the shock to the United States was not unsimilar to the shock of finding that Sputnik had been launched by the Russians and America could not do that. They certainly caught up, and this is, I think, another case with China. China has got some very advanced engineering, and I think America doesn't particularly like that. I think Europe doesn't like it, but it doesn't necessarily have the means whereby to catch up as fast as the US.
There's a large number of attendees from the oil and gas community, Lord Brown. I'm sure they saw your name and they were very keen to attend and hear your words. So far, we haven't talked much about oil and gas, but acknowledging the audience and acknowledging our wonderful partners that are listening, might I ask you, and I know you've been asked this question many times before, but how do you see the oil recovery? Do you see an oil recovery, and what does the roadmap look like over the next year or so?
Well, let's just talk about this, but I want to talk about the medium and longer term. But let's talk about the medium term first. Again, let's go back in history and see whether there's something we can learn from. And I think it's the situation in 85, 86, when I was actually in the US, part of the Standard Oil Company. At that time, the price of oil was being held up by Saudi Arabia producing less and less of its oil. And it got to the point where it was producing so little, it said, enough, we're losing our market share, we will turn on the taps. So the price collapsed in today's money from around about $70 to around about $30. And that's what happened. And they decided that they would stick with their market share. Everybody else did. They were helped a bit by the collapse of the Soviet Union in part of the period. But for 17 years after Saudi had turned on the taps, the price of oil stayed between $30 and $40 in today's terms. Now, it's not a forecast, it's just a lesson to remind people that there is a lot of oil in the world, and its price has never been natural. When the market prices the oil, it tends to remind itself that there's plenty of supply behind pipe somewhere. When OPEC prices oil, in this case it's OPEC plus Russia, it then tends to price it upwards. There's always, the United States is the world's biggest liquid producer. And the US has always had, but in particular now, a lot of very small producers, a lot of very small production, individual wells, as opposed to these big offshore platforms, big fields like Gawar and so forth in the Middle East. So it's able to tune its production moves up and down according to the marginal contribution of each well. So it's quite price sensitive. And as the price goes down, the US tends to produce less oil. As the price goes up, it tends to produce more oil, producing downward pressure on the price. So the equilibrium point is always uncertain, can't be forecast. But those who invest in oil always have to plan on high volatility and plan for the situation where actually the taps are turned on and the price goes down. There were very unusual, very extreme conditions at the moment because we entered this particular last collapse with demand going down because of COVID-19. It turned out not as much as everyone expected, but it really did go down. And inventories being built everywhere, and they're very high at the moment. They really are. They'll take a long time to get rid of, back to normal conditions. So expect quite a volatile future. I think the negative prices were a one-off because no one thought they could find places to store oil. Turned out that they could in the end. And even better information is now available, courtesy of great satellite imaging and great processing and learning algorithms that fill in the gaps when the clouds cover certain parts of the world. So better information. I think there's a longer term issue, which I have been speaking about since 1997, and that is the contribution of oil and gas and coal in particular to the concentration of carbon dioxide and methane in the atmosphere. This obviously is, in my view, changing the climate. I've always believed that, and we need to be very careful with that. I think we don't want to run this experiment to conclusion. If we think that COVID-19 did something bad to the global economy, killed lots of people, and that we really didn't want this to happen, then another natural phenomenon, climate change, could do this, but on a magnitude we've never seen. And I think we need to remember that. It's all very well living for today, but one day, and we don't know when, it will suddenly come and bite us. And that's why we need to take steps now to reduce emissions of CO2 and methane into the atmosphere very significantly. Otherwise, we will alter things that we can't get back to equilibrium.
That conclusion is incredibly powerful. We've let COVID do this to us. Let's not let climate change do it to us. It'll be at a whole different magnitude. Lord Brown, thank you so very much. Michelle has received a range of questions from the audience, and she will be just going through them with you now. Thank you.
Great.
Hello, Lord Brown. When you were at BP, did you work with smaller, more agile tech companies? And if so, did you find that experience to help accelerate innovation?
Well, there were some. I think for a lot of my time when I was in the actually in the operations, there were some very, very large companies that had really got most of the market. And BP, we always tried to support the smaller companies to compete because partly it was because we get good ideas, and we did, but partly also it kept the big companies on their toes. Otherwise, they go to sleep. They sell the same thing again and again and expect you to be grateful for paying more for less as you go forward. So I think it's the smaller companies that innovated, and I think that was very important. Oilfield equipment in particular, the design of ultra-high pressure valves, pipes and things like that,
sure.
A lot of small businesses were involved with. When I was in BP, that we were, of course, a very, very large consumer of high-performance computing from the very beginning. Actually, that's how I started my second career in BP, with what was then ultra-high-performance computing, which was now probably rather less powerful than this thing. But we were constantly on the lookout for people who would produce better equipment for us, better software, and better control systems. And that really was a combination of smaller as well as larger companies. Very important that we keep an ecosystem going, in my view.
Understand. Thank you. Where do you see technology leading the oil and gas industry in the next few years to come?
So I think the important thing that the oil and gas industry is always focused on is first that they are a commodity producer, and low costs, that is high efficiency, really matters. So I think AI, general data science, control systems can do all that. That's very important. Secondly, I think it is in the measurement and control of emissions. I think increasingly we can now begin to see how to measure emissions more accurately, both terrestrial measurements and Earth observation satellite measurements. This is very important. I think it's crucial. And as an aside, I think it will add real basis of analysis for the so-called ESG reporting, which is so important to gain the confidence of investors. So I think a lot of that activity. I think thirdly, in terms of materials, we still don't understand how to reconvert plastics efficiently into something else. I think the tools and techniques for doing that haven't moved much since the 80s or 70s. So I think there's going to be something new there because we will always need these sorts of lightweight, strong materials that will eventually be used and need to be gotten rid of. So I think a variety of things will happen. But importantly, I think, too, there are plenty of advances outside oil and gas as well. So I've been involved in renewable energy since the 90s. It's very clear that's come a long, long way. The costs have come down, efficiency gone up in solar panels. I still think that there's a huge leap forward available with materials in that area. Wind turbines have become gigantic. No longer is it, the wow statement was, this turbine has a wingspan bigger than an A380. You nowadays will say, well, so what? But they're gigantic and produce also very low cost electricity. But hydrogen, whether from green sources, from high pressure electrolysis of seawater, or from reforming of natural gas and the capture and storage of the carbon dioxide, great advances are needed for the future. So a lot of things are happening, I think, at the moment. I think the biggest choice that oil and gas industries and actually energy industries are is where to put their capital. What should they do? Where do they forecast the future? And where do they invest? And where do they simply run for cash? And it looks to me like that decision is not fully baked by most people yet. But we'll see it coming in the next year or so, I think.
So we have just a couple more minutes and we'll make this the last question of the day. How crucial is AI in innovation and technological advancement overall? Specifically for the energy sector, do you see AI being a game changer for companies who adopt it?
Without any doubt at all. I think, all of us in the oil and gas business, anyone in industrial process business would like to have plant with nobody on it. I think that's really important. We would like everything to be intelligently, super intelligently, self-learning, controlled, and not expose human beings to any of the unpleasantness of sites, or the dangers and the safety issues involved. So I think that it's got a real advance. And I think the reason it hasn't been used is partly it wasn't there, of course, but also people have said, well, we're used to doing it the way we used to do it, let's not change. But if we can control very advanced pieces of equipment and we can do this from the private sector in space, then there's no reason why we can't do things in an extraordinary way on the land and sea. So I think it remains very important. The oil and gas industry has been an enormous consumer of data-driven activity, and I think it must continue that way, and I believe it will continue that way.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That concludes our show for today, and thank you all for taking the time to join us. I'd also like to thank our incredible lineup of speakers for sharing their expertise and insights during our first Time Machine virtual session. We hope you all enjoyed the show and are walking away with a fresh perspective on the road ahead as the COVID outbreak continues to evolve, as well as how we can use emerging technologies to tackle future pandemics. Note, this is only the first session in our virtual interactive series, and we'll be hosting more throughout the year, focusing on a variety of topics, and we'll be sure to send you details as they become available. Again, thank you, and stay safe.
Yes, that was the interview sessions conducted by Mr. Amir Hussain with Lord John Brown from the SparkCognition Time Machine Digital Conference that we learned so much from the interview that the AI in the digital transformation has evolved into a needs and in all industries, especially oil and gas. And how about your industry? And with that, we're going to talk more on this, on how SparkCognition can help your AI solution. We have the VP Solution from SparkCognition, Mr. Philip Herve, and also Head of APAC, Mr. Hiroshi Kinoshita. How are you, gentlemen?
Doing very well. Thank you so much for having us here today. I look forward to the questions which are coming from the assembly.
Okay. Let's move on to our next questions for both of you. That's already in our chat box. Number one is from Mr. Bambang Ismanto, the VP of Technical Assurance in Medco E&P. Considering oil and gas business is a high-risk industry, how we can balance between machine learning and AI with assurance of a safe operations? Okay.
No.
Probably Philip, it's from you. For you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you very much. So, you know, when we look at risks, really, what is risky are the challenges you don't know about. If you know about a particular risk, you can manage it. If you don't know about the risk, then it's an unknown that's going to hit you, and that's how catastrophic accidents happen. What you can do is with machine learning and natural language processing is go and query all of your database of safety reports, which are written on a daily basis for all the near misses and all the accidents. Hopefully you're getting a lot more near misses on accidents. What you see when you do this analysis of your database is the first thing is we see a lot of misclassification. As you know, when an employee selects a pull-down menu or selects a checkbox, it just had a dangerous situation which generated him to create this safety report. So he's excited, he's nervous, he's disturbed, and he's probably going to have a bit of fat fingering on the boxes and choose the wrong box, which makes your further classification and understanding of your risk a bit more complicated. But then there's this one white box where you can type or enter exactly what has happened. It's going to be in poor Franglish, because as the French don't speak very well English, or poor Bahasa or Indonesian or English, but it's going to be very accurate, very, very accurate on exactly what has happened. And the challenge is to reclassify all of this information in order to make sense of it, which is very difficult with a word search. But if you use natural language processing, you can extract the value, which is from what has been entered by your employees, to understand exactly where the risks are. For example, one of our clients, who was an operator on land, asked us to look at the information and see if we could reclassify it to highlight some of the risks they didn't know about. And so we reclassified the entire database and found out that driving was a huge risk for them. Now, when you have thousands of people on the road every day, the fact that driving is a big risk is not a surprise. We don't need artificial intelligence to tell us that. What was very surprising to our clients is we told them driving into animals is a big risk for you. You drive into a lot of animals, and they say, well, we don't know about that. Why don't, clarify for us, tell us what you mean. And so we showed them all the records, which is you are driving into cats and dogs and cows and deer and goose and moose. Just about anything which is on the road, you're driving into it at some point of time. When you do a keyword search in your database, it returns a dog here and a cat there or a bird. But you cannot do a search for animal. The word search doesn't understand animal, or maybe it returns one hit when somebody entered the word animal. But what natural language processing was able to do was to look at all the information and realize that animal was a big category. So it made what we call a cluster in the data space of animals. And then there was another cluster in the data space for driving. And then there was an overlap between the two clusters, driving and animals. And so being able to highlight this then the client was able to change the training program and make their drivers aware that driving into animals was a challenge. They trained the people on how to make sure you don't have accident driving into animals, and that particular risk became lower before somebody got killed. We do this on a real time with every new near misses coming into the database. And as you understand your new risks as they evolve, as the operation evolves, then you can take actions to mitigate those risks before they turn into a large accident. Thank you for this question.
Okay, that's a very interesting study case that AI can minimize the high-risk industry, especially if you put it into mitigation, and then the result can be lowered from inherited mitigation risk into the lower one. Thank you, Philip, for the answers. Okay, another questions is come from Mr. Gibson Hutapea, Senior Specialist, Environment Safety, Kilang Pertamina International. In a refinery process, how machine learning or artificial intelligence can help operation safety, operation performance and reliability, as well as operation efficiency? Okay, so lots one pipeline here in the operation department.
No, very good. Thank you for this question, Mr. Gibson. So what we have found is actually work on multiple refineries around the world for BP and others, but we have a particular use case here in Texas with a refinery operated by Texmark. And when we went from the pre-digitalization situation to being implemented, we have noticed a few things. The first thing which has happened is refinery was available more often. The availability of the refinery had increased in percentage, and as a result, they were able to produce more products. As you produce more product, it's good. You get more money on your bottom line, and everybody gets happy. The second thing which happened is, as we were able to stabilize all the processes based on artificial intelligence, the quality of the product became more stable, which is something that the clients were very happy about. But if I bring the CEO of the refinery, Mr. Doug Smith, here to this call, he will not speak about the improvement in production or the improvement in quality. He will speak only about two things: the improvement in safety and the improvement in the morale of his people, the employees of the company. Because what was happening before is the phone was ringing at 2 a.m. in the morning, and it was going something like, "Hey, Jim, this compressor is broken. You need to go and fix it right now." And then until that compressor was fixed, the phone kept on ringing and ringing and ringing. Why are we not fixed? What's the problem? What is the delay? And under pressure, poor Jim was most of the time repairing properly and safely, and everything went well. But every so often, he would injure himself, or he would injure somebody in his crew, or he would break something else in the process because, in the middle of the night under pressure, things happen. Once we implemented artificial into the refinery, then the phone call still happen at 2 a.m. in the morning, but it's very, very different. Now it goes like, "Hey, Jim, sorry to disturb you in the middle of the night, but we can see that this compressor is going to fail in about 8 to 10 days. Could you please have a meeting in the morning with your crew and find out how to repair it safely, efficiently, without disturbing production or affecting the refinery processes?" And so in the morning, Jim would take his entire team. They would define how to best fix it. They would work with operation people to define the best time to do that repair when that piece of equipment is less needed or not needed. And the repair goes very well. As a result, the safety records of the refinery have improved. And this has been audited by the U.S. Safety Authority, which is called OSHA here. But I'm sure you got your own authorities in Indonesia. And more importantly to Mr. Smith, the CEO, the morale of the people has increased, because instead of being shot at all the time on, why is it always broken and you guys cannot fix it. Suddenly it was, you guys are so good. I mean, all the failures, you know about them in advance, and you fix them. I mean, it changed the refinery processes and atmosphere tremendously. So what does AI bring to you? A better operation all along. It makes your people, every single one of your employees, your best employee. And that's what we are bringing with artificial intelligence.
Okay, so the AI itself is not just for the solution, but it can be for early warning system, isn't it?
Yes, we use artificial intelligence as an early warning system to predict when something is going to fail, to predict when some process is going to become unstable, and to predict what's going to happen in the future, so you can take care of it before it happens.
Okay, that's a very interesting fact and also very useful. We're going to have another questions, but okay. Yeah, okay. But so before we go to Hiroshi, is there anything that you would like to add as your closing statement with this AI solution, especially in oil and gas, Mr. Philippe Herve?
To me, and Mr. Hussain spoke a little bit about it in one of his talks, is the best day to start your digital transformation journey and working with artificial intelligence is today.
Okay. Yeah, that's...
Okay. Do not wait. Do not wait for something to happen. Get started now, because your competitors are already starting, and if you get behind, it will be very difficult to catch up. So get started today.
Yeah. D'accord for that. Thank you very much, Monsieur Philippe Herve. And then we are moving on to our next reviewer or speaker. Is the head of APAC from SparkCognition, Mr. Hiroshi Kinoshita. Can you hear me, Mr. Hiroshi?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for joining us. So from this interview, we know about the oil and gas, but is there any other industries that work very closely to AI or digital transformation that you know, and where should they begin first?
So thank you about the question. Okay, so let me first explain what we have done as a SparkCognition. We have been focused on a mission critical sector like power generation. Oil and gas is of course one of them. Energy and defense and cybersecurity. So those areas, right? For oil and gas, Philippe just mentioned how the AI can help the operation, the safety, and also the reliability of the system. In case of, for example, power generation, we have done a lot of things similar to what we have done for oil and gas. So predictive maintenance, the predictive failures of power plants, turbines, all the critical assets, right? So and increase the uptime. And of course, those things can ensure the safety of the operators. So that's another area. And also for the defense, I don't think today the participants are mainly come from private sector. But what we have done for defense sector in the U.S. is make sure they were ready to respond to any risk. So including the predictive maintenance of the equipment, the aircrafts or the submarines, those kind of things. So those are the areas we have been focused on. So we start actually with the mission critical systems where the improvement, only 1% or 2% of improvement can make a lot of difference, right? So those are the areas. And also when it comes to potential, I would say, area for AI, and we haven't talked about the cybersecurity today, but the cybersecurity actually is the huge area for opportunity for the players like us, AI players, or also for any corporates and any organizations. There are lots of examples of the security breach every day. So we are starting to building up the solution using AI to detect any zero-day malwares every day. So those are the areas we have been working on. Of course, there are other areas people can think of, as Philip or Amir described, or even Iveti described potential areas: revenue generation, costs reduction, and the risk mitigation. So having those framework in mind and start thinking about the what is relevant for you, then start with that topic is something you want to do.
Okay, thank you, Hiroshi. So if I may add, so there's a wide range of AI solution that we can provide, and all you have to do is start to do it. And at the end of the program, we're going to have a information for those of you who would like to know more about AI solution that we provide. And ladies and gentlemen, before we close our session for today, as we informed, there are 10 lucky actively participants that will receive a book written by Mr. Amir Hussain, the founder of CEO SparkCognition. And here they are. The book of Sentient Machine goes to Bapak Hardianto, Bapak Salomo Depi, Ibu Francisca Wi, Bapak Bimantara Wijayala, Bapak Basilo Araujo, Bapak Adrian Lembong, Ibu Inggita Noto Susanto, Ibu Maria Chin, Bapak Bambang Ismanto, dan Bapak Gibson Hutapea. Congratulations, Bapak and Ibu, and then your confirmation. Please do have your data so we can send the books to your address. Ladies and gentlemen, some point taken before we leave the seminar for you to take home with, that the digital transformation is here to stay. From this first speaker, we learned that the AI technologies is inevitable, and the rapid progress is so fast, like it or not, every industry have to adopt and cope with it, that advantage and disadvantage. And we know that how to embed AI technology into the core of your strategy, learn how to solve the resistance from your external and internal, and find out the long-term goal, also the quick win in every plan. Every season has its message, especially in this pandemic era, and we are challenged to be more creative, embracing the AI technology, and it's one of a smart option to take and to prepare ourselves for the challenging future ahead in Indonesia. And with that, on behalf of the speakers, IICD, SparkCognition, and Geoservices, also BeritaSatu Holding, we would like to thank you for your attention and your participation for today. I am David Manalu. Thank you. Terima kasih. Sampai jumpa and see you at the top. Thank you. Stay safe.